Hi and welcome. So I'm here a few minutes earlier today just so that we can meet and so that we can test everything before we begin. So I can see that the first meditation practitioners have just shown up. So if you are one of them, let me know if the mic is sounding good and if you can see the picture well or if you're experiencing any issues. So I've just activated the live chat and you can use that in order to give me a little bit of feedback. So if you just arrived, you have a couple more minutes before we begin. And I want for you to make sure that you have either a candle or an object that you like to look at ready. So I can see that the sound is working out and that you can see and hear everything. That's perfect. So get yourself ready. This will primarily be a seated meditation. So maybe something like a pillow or a folded blanket or a yoga block or something that resembles them in shape would be really great to have. That way you won't be disturbed from the meditation practice. You'll be able to keep your back straight. You'll be able to enjoy the practice hopefully a little bit more. So get yourself a meditation cushion or a block, or just fold a blanket and place it under your seat as we get started. So hi, we've got a few countries on board already. You can just use the chat and tell me which country you are joining me from today. So I'm streaming everything from Switzerland, from just outside Zurich. And I think we've got Belgium on board and Switzerland so far. We've got Canada. Great. We've got Cornwall. Is there anyone on board that comes from a country I haven't named yet? We've got London, Argentina, Denmark. Brilliant. So just say hi if you haven't shared with us where you're joining us from today. As always, it seems it's going to be a very international meditation shala here tonight. And if you have just arrived, make sure that you have something that you can use as an object in this practice. So maybe a candle, maybe a crystal, maybe a stone, maybe a plant, maybe an object that has a specific significance to you or completely neutral. So it doesn't really matter as long as it's pleasant for you to look at it. So welcome to United States. I've got someone from United States that just joined. Sarah, more Copenhagen. Great. So now it's 8 o'clock. So we are ready to start. 8 o'clock in Central European summertime, that is. If you are joining us from the other side of the planet, it might still be early afternoon. So whenever you are ready, get yourself into a comfortable seated position. So you can wiggle a little bit on your pillow or on your folded blanket so that nothing is in your way and so that everything feels comfortable. And before we begin, I just want to tell you a few words about the practice that we are about to try with you. So this practice is called Eka Grata Meditation. And maybe some of you have tried this before. Is there anyone who has done Eka Grata practice prior to now? You can maybe just give me a little yes in the chat. Or is there anyone for whom it is a completely brand new practice that you have never experienced in your life and you have no idea what it is? I'm curious. If you are new to this, I'm just going to tell you a few words about what this practice is about. So Eka Grata is a practice that focuses your attention on one object. And so this actually doesn't have to be a physical object. This can even be a mantra or a sound that you're focusing on in your head, or it can be a sacred geometry shape that you're focusing on. It can even be something very abstract that really helps you keep your attention in one place. So the translation of the word Eka Grata is one pointed. So we're going to be practicing today. What we're going to be practicing is one pointed attention. And one of the easiest ways to start the practice of one-pointed attention or single-centered attention is to use a physical object that you can look at. So many of us are visual learners, and our visual sense is really important to us. So if you are one of them, it might be the easiest way to start. But even if visual sense is not your primary sense through which you learn and through which you perceive the world around you, this might still be something that is relatively easy to make sense of and to start with. And the idea of what we're going to be doing is to not try and silence the thinking mind, not force the thinking mind to be quiet throughout the meditation class, but rather give your mind something that it can focus on instead of being upset about thoughts coming and going. So probably as long as you're human, you're never going to be able to completely stop your thoughts unless you're sleeping. But even when you're sleeping, there is still a form of thinking happening, because while you're sleeping, you're still experiencing things, you're still making sense of things, you're still surviving, if this is what your dream is about. And the thinking mind is to some degree still engaged. So don't try and fight the thoughts in your head. Probably this is not going to be a battle that you can win. And there is nothing wrong about thoughts being there. What we are trying to do with the meditation practice is to be able to zoom out of that thinking process for some time. Let it happen, perhaps in the background, but give mind something else to focus on rather than just focusing on thinking. And this can already give you a very nice mental break. So just letting go of the need to resist the thinking process or resist the idea that we should block the thinking process in some way while we're meditating can already offer you a very nice mental break. And so today we're going to start with this one-pointed attention practice, for which you will be using a candle or a stone or a crystal. And then I'm going to guide you through a practice that is going to help you expand your field of awareness. So you're starting with a really, really tiny point on which you're going to be focusing. And then very gradually, when this becomes easy, you'll be able to include more and more in your field of awareness without letting your thoughts take over the process, hopefully. So the way that it works is we are going to be keeping the eyes open, especially in the beginning of this practice. You can place a candle on the floor in front of you. Make sure that you don't burn anything. If you place it in a candle holder or something that is going to ensure you don't have to readjust it later in the practice. So place it on the floor, perhaps 50 centimeters to 70 centimeters away from your body. And just take a moment to defocus your gaze somewhat. So you're going to be looking at that candle, or you're going to be looking at that rock, or whatever it is that you have prepared for yourself. And slightly defocus your gaze. So it feels like you're trying to look past the tip of your nose. And to begin with, focus on that object very vaguely. So you're not going to be trying to figure out the tiniest detail, but rather just keeping that object generally in the field of your attention. And as you begin to arrive, just take a few easy breaths in and out. Noticing how you're doing today, if this has been a very nice day so far, or if this has been a bit of a tough one for you. Whatever it is that you discover, whichever answer comes to you, see if you can make it okay. And see if you can just say thank you to yourself internally for just showing up, for just being with us tonight. And as you are continuing to slightly blur your vision, looking at that object in front of you, just take a moment to scan your facial muscles. So noticing if your face is straining or trying real hard to look at that object that you're looking at. See if you can make that process easier for yourself. So soften the muscles on your forehead, soften the muscles around the eyes, around the nose. Soften and relax your lips. Soften and relax the muscles around the lips and the mouth. See if you can also soften the area at the backs of the eyes, as well as the back of the mouth. And just continue to look at that object. And then noticing how the shape and the outline of that object is starting to get a lot clearer. Noticing the detail. If you are looking at a candle, you can begin to notice the way that the shape of the flame is ever changing. Beginning to notice the tiniest color differences between the center of the flame, the middle of the flame, the aura around the flame. Noticing the way that candle responds to the smallest movements of air through the room that are perhaps not even noticeable to a naked eye. And if you're looking at something like a rock or a plant, beginning to notice the tiniest details, the shape, the color, the qualities of that object. Starting to focus even more, noticing with precision that thing right in front of you. And you'll probably notice that there are also other things going on through your head right now. It might be thoughts, or it might be the planning process. It might be some memories or impressions of the day going through your head. So they can still be there. You don't have to fight them. You don't have to cancel them out. But whenever you notice that you are getting involved in the thinking process or carried away by a thought, let the focus return to that object, the object of your attention. Letting the breath travel in and out of your system with ease. And letting your mind return back from your thinking process and to that object again and again. We often think that unless we're able to keep our attention 100% steady, either on the breath or in this particular context on an object, unless we can keep our attention fully centered at all times, our meditation is not good enough. So what I want for you to remind about is that meditation is in fact a practice. So what we're practicing right now is returning the attention back to that thing that we're trying to focus on. So whenever your thoughts distract you, bring your mind back. Now see if you can keep your focus firmly connected to that object that you're observing. So still looking at the candle, still looking at the rock or a plant or a flower or what have you. But now, with that focus very firmly attached to that object, start to also include in the field of your attention the area around that object. So maybe just a few square centimeters around it. Maybe a little table that you have placed a candle on, maybe a part of the carpet that it's on, or your floor. So still focusing on the candle flame or a point on the rock. Beginning to include a little bit more space around it in the field of your attention. Now, as you continue to breathe, see if you can expand the field of your attention even more, so that now you're simultaneously focusing on your candle or whatever object you're watching, but you're able to include even more space around it, perhaps the entire room that you're in. To see if you can really have the entire space that surrounds you in your field of awareness. So being really aware of every single thing that characterizes the room in which you're practicing. Being really aware of the sounds, of the atmosphere, the smells, the textures. Every single detail, the entire room is now entering your field of awareness, while your gaze is still on the candle. Notice your presence within the space in which you are practicing. Now see if you can expand your field of awareness even more. So now, in addition to your object, that candle or crystal, in addition to the space around it, in addition to the room in which you're practicing, beginning to include the entire building that you're in. See if you can become more and more aware of how that space feels. If you get distracted, come back. Bring your mind back. So if you have ever practiced diving, what you probably remember is that to orient yourself, you often use a line. So that line will bring you exactly to that boat or that vessel that you are diving from, as long as you follow that line. So as long as you are looking at that candle, this is the object that will continue to bring you back to this moment. You can think about it as your meditation line. So this is your line back to being present, wherever your mind has drifted in the past minute or more. So as long as you're looking at the candle, you're able to stay fully present, fully focused, and keep in the field of your awareness, not just the candle itself, but also the space in which you're practicing, the building in which you're practicing. And now expand your field of awareness even further to include the neighborhood that you're in right now. Becoming aware of how you are the tiny little figure, the tiny little component of a greater whole. So see if you can include the entire neighborhood in your field of awareness. Being 100% present, even if the thoughts are still happening in the background. Being aware of all the sounds, being aware of all the noises. Being aware how this part of the city feels. And you can continue to expand your field of awareness even more. So now including not just the room that you're in, the building that you're in, the neighborhood that you're in, but also the entire city or the entire area that your neighborhood is a part of. So simultaneously having all of these things present in the field of your awareness, starting with a tiny little object in front of you and expanding it to include the entire area or region. If at some point this becomes too much for you, you can always shrink back to whatever feels manageable. But if you're still enjoying this process, and this can be a really fun meditation as well, in a way, if you haven't done this before, begin to include in the field of your awareness your entire country, so that you are extremely aware of how it feels to be this tiny human as a part of a greater whole. So expanding your field of awareness to include other people, to include a bigger part of the map, and still stay 100% present exactly where you are. And then begin to expand your field of awareness even further, including the continent, and perhaps eventually growing it even bigger to include the entire planet, so that you still have that one pointed concentration going while you're simultaneously aware of a greater whole, of your much bigger home than just the room that you're in, so that you're aware of your presence and your importance. So that you are fully aware of your significance as one tiny little soul being a part of something much bigger. It's the same way as you are one little drop in the ocean. You actually have the entire ocean in yourself, in that little drop. You have everything that the ocean has in you. You have everything that the universe is made of with you. And see how much further you can expand the field of your awareness. Maybe zooming out of that visual of our planet and including much more than what we can conceive with the human mind. And if at one point you notice that you got distracted, just bring yourself back. If you notice that you're getting impatient, and your mind needs more stimulation, just remind yourself that it's okay to be still for a little while. It's okay to not be in a non-stop run or non-stop process of achieving something. It's okay to take a break. Now bring your attention back to that candle or that object in front of you. Notice the way that you're breathing, and whether it's the exact same pattern as you noticed in the beginning of the practice, or whether something has changed in the meanwhile. Notice the quality of your focus and the quality of your attention, and whether it's the same or there is a slight shift or change that happened during the practice. And if you notice that your eyes are getting tired of looking at that object, see if once again you can slightly defocus your gaze, still looking at the thing, but not forcing any of that. So just looking at that candle or that object in a very soft and relaxed way. And then beginning to bring your awareness closer and closer to the space that you're practicing in. So just the same way as you were expanding your awareness in the beginning of this practice, see if you can begin to somewhat shrink your attention. So your awareness is coming closer and closer to your meditation corner or that room that you're practicing in. So that once again it's just you and the candle. And then for a moment, close your eyes and just visualize that object with your eyes closed. See if you can recreate every little detail of the object that you know really well by now. If your mind wanders off, bring it back. Give yourself this very well-deserved break, a moment of rest from your day. See if you can soften into this moment. Let go of any bits of resistance or tension. And just enjoy dwelling here. As opposed to following the monkey mind. And then taking 3 deep, slow, releasing breaths now. You can breathe both in and out through your nose. I'd like for you to try and soften your neck, soften your jaw, soften your face. And then eventually bring your attention to your lower belly. And if you feel there is a knot or a bit of tension dwelling there, untie that area. See if it can soften any remaining bits of tension. And just enjoy the last few minutes of this practice in a place of ease. Breathing in and breathing out deeply. Thanking yourself for this practice. And then you can gently open your eyes. First of all, look at the floor, the carpet, or the object in front of you. And when the eyes once again Get used to being open. Get used to the light. I'm going to prepare to close this practice. And I want for you to let me know if there's anything that really resonated with you. Maybe some things about this practice were really easy for you because it's so visual. Maybe it was actually quite challenging because you're not used to practicing with your eyes open. Or maybe there is a question that popped up while you are practicing. So I would love to hear if you have any feedback from me, or if you have any questions from me, you can just put them in the live chat. I know that some of you joining me today are also participating in the online course that just started 4 days ago, the Clear and Calm You. And this is actually a practice that I haven't included in the course. I wanted to offer you a little extra by doing this as a live streamed session. So I want to hear from you and find out what about this practice spoke to you. And if there's something I can help you clarify or understand, also do let me know. Or maybe you're just really relaxed right now, ready to roll into bed. So if you are in this time zone, it's already 8:30, and I know that that's probably not your bedtime yet, but try to keep your evening relatively stress-free and really easy. So unless you really are facing an emergency at work, see if you can let go of any work-related activities for now. And just keep your evening really open, keep your evening really relaxed. And to stick with things that help you ground yourself before you head off to bed. One more advice would be to avoid bright lights. So if you are having difficulty falling asleep or staying asleep, it is a very good idea to spend the last hour or 2 hours before bedtime in a darker space so that your mind stays in that parasympathetic nervous system activation, and it's easier for you to fall asleep, stay asleep, and enjoy a better quality of rest. So I can see that that Sasha has drifted quite far away and quietly fell asleep. Great. So this practice can be very relaxing indeed. And this is also why I like to offer that in the evening. So if it's hard for you to switch from activity to relaxation, just use this practice before going to bed. So turn the lights off, just use that candle or a small light that can illuminate the object you're looking at. And just stay in that little bubble, the pre-bedtime relaxation bubble. And don't overactivate yourself by watching a movie afterwards. You can just keep it for the next time when you are not meditating. The time really went super quickly. I agree with Anya. Great. Thank you, Nina. Thank you, Mette. Great. So Christina hasn't done this before, but I can see she enjoyed it. Loved expanding to the whole planet. So this is actually a continuation of the practice that sometimes doesn't get covered by the teachers. We often just stay with that one object, and sometimes we get really bored looking at that candle or looking at that rock. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. Actually, working with a mind that likes to get bored is something that meditation can help you with. So in the Buddhist tradition, for example, we like to examine the boredom, how boredom feels. Why does it bother us? What is it about being bored that really triggers us? And that in itself can be a very interesting topic for meditation. The expanding part is something that I learned from one of my teachers. I really like to include that in my own practice. And I find that it gives a bit of a perspective, because oftentimes we get so self-involved as human beings. And that's also something that, in my personal opinion, is kind of incentivized by the society that I live in. So maybe you have experienced the same. So that self-involvement is often praised, incentivized, encouraged. But I think that it is really important to sometimes give ourselves a possibility to zoom out, whichever way you choose to do that. I like to do that both when I meditate and when I journal. So just zooming out sometimes gives you a perspective of how small you are, and yet how much of a change you can still make, and how within you have the entire universe, have the same building blocks. You're made of the same things as the universe is made of. So there is no separation in a way. And ego can be quite a trap if we get to zoom out on a regular basis. So now I can see a few more comments that have arrived. Great. So definitely, I agree with Lorna that focusing on that object that you have in front of you can be a wonderful, very powerful way to bring yourself back into the moment. So if you are a person who likes to multitask and who gets distracted really easily, just having that visual to start with is magic. And if you are a person who doesn't feel comfortable closing the eyes or just meditating with eyes closed in general, another great alternative. You don't have to close the eyes here at all. You can just keep looking at that one thing in front of you. So Celine is saying it was very relaxing. Awesome. And if expanding the field of awareness feels really overwhelming for you, as I mentioned once during the practice, you can keep it quite small. So maybe just focus on the room and that's enough. Or focus on the building, keep the building within the field of your awareness, or keep the neighborhood, and that's plenty. If at one point you feel like venturing out a little bit further, then just add more or make the field of your awareness even bigger. If you have a very vivid imagination, that might be very easy to do and really fun to play with the visuals that come. So I can see Elizabeth felt like she's going to fall asleep. Great. So if you're feeling sleepy, that's fantastic. So meditation doesn't have to be a tool to wake you up. There are some meditation practices that have that element to them. They actually activate the body. Usually these are meditations that have a component of movement to them. But for the most part, what we're trying to do is actually shift you from the activation mode into the rest and digest mode, which is another way to describe the parasympathetic nervous system activation, which is the opposite of stress, essentially. So if you're feeling sleepy, that's a very good sign that what we were trying to do worked. So you succeeded in shifting to the parasympathetic heaven. So Jasmine liked the visualization. Yeah, that can be super powerful and a great way to remind yourself that you're not isolated from the rest of the world, but you're actually interconnected. Everything is. Great. Nice. So we've got one more comment. Yes, I can see that Anya's eyes were tearing up. That's also quite common, especially if you're new to this practice. You can just blink a little bit more often if your eyes start to tear up. Or just close your eyes and visualize that object that you were previously looking at without opening the eyes. So by now you know it pretty well. You can keep it in front of you without even having to keep eyes open. So you can keep it in your mind's eye and just don't bother with forcing your eyes to stay open. So Anya, it's all good. Next time, make it even easier for yourself. So I want to say thank you so much to everyone who joined us today. I love the idea of this virtual meditation shala where we can have people from all over the world, and it's very inclusive, and we don't have to be limited to just one physical space after all. So this is one thing that I came to realize with the onset of the pandemic on this planet, that actually there's a lot of beauty that is available to us in the form of technology, and that we can do these things. Maybe we should do these things more often, gathering together in front of the in front of the teacher and in front of the meditation space, and just staying within your own bubble at the same time. I want to say you're all amazing for showing up. I know that there are quite a few practitioners who are showing up on a weekly basis, and I really appreciate that you're doing this and that you're keeping all of us company. So if you have any more questions or any more comments about the practice or more feedback from me, you know my email address, so just feel free to reach out and let me know what's surfacing for you. And I look forward to continuing our program, the online program that is a 21-day process that we have started on Thursday. I will see you guys tomorrow morning. I'll be in your ears. And I look forward to having the rest of you here next Monday evening. Thank you all so much.